Hello everyone, and today I have a review of a book called The Madman's Daughter by Megan Shepherd, and this book just really surprised me with how great and wonderful it was. I was really drawn in by the cover. It was really mysterious and lovely. You know how you can see those little advertisements on the side for Goodreads? The cover actually was what made me want to pick up the book, and the sequel is coming out on January 28th, so I figured this was the perfect time to read it. And boy, is it one of my new favorite books. So the story, I guess, is based off of the island of Dr. Moreau or something like that. I've actually never heard of it before. So that was kind of a surprise, as in that I didn't really know what to expect. So in case you don't know anything about that tale either, I still haven't even read it. It is about a girl, I'm guessing back in 1800s, 1900s. Her father was a doctor, and he was eventually thrown out of England for his experiments, and people called him mad, and because her family was publicly disgraced, they lost all of their status. They didn't have a father or a man figure in order to provide for them, and eventually Juliet's mother dies, and she's stuck in London trying to take care of herself. Through a series of events, she runs into one of the servants that used to be at her house, and they go back to an island because she finds out that her father is still alive. So they travel back to this island that her father has been expelled to see for, in fact, if her father is mad or if he is the person that she remembers from when she was about 10 years old. One of the things that I thought was so great about this book series is that it's called The Madman's Daughter, and while you're reading it, there are some gruesome and in-depth talks about his experiments. It's really an interesting read because on the one hand, my mind's like, ew, that's really gross. I don't want to hear about all these things. And then on the other hand, I'm like, this is really cool. Tell me more. And so it's this perfect melding of something that's just so gross and yet beautiful. So it's interesting because the main character kind of has these mad tendencies as well, and so you're able to kind of connect to her in those type of ways of, the writing is mad itself, and you get to experience that along with Juliet. I could not put down this book. I read about maybe 10% of it just one night, and then the next day I just could not concentrate on anything until I read the book. So then the whole next day I just read the book, and I cannot wait for the sequel. The sequel is called Her Dark Curiosity, and I'm super excited to see where this sequel will take us. So if this sounds like an interesting book to you, please go and read it. I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal and great, and I think you should read it too. So that is the end of the non-spoilery section. If you have read it, please stay tuned and we can then discuss this in general. So I will see you guys later so you won't be spoiled. But if you have read it, stay tuned. So really for this discussion, I don't really know where to begin because there's just so much. So I'm just gonna kind of go by characters and start with that and kind of talk about each character and how I felt about them and then the different scenarios that they were in. So let's start with the obvious father. It's interesting because he's not a typical bad guy. You really wanted to kind of work out between the doctor and Juliet, but at the same time in the back of your head you're like, that's probably not gonna work out. He's really kind of bad, and as much as you want it to work out, you just know that it won't. I feel if you read these books, you kind of know that he's going to end up being mad. I mean, the title, The Madman's Daughter. But the extent of his experiments, I just could not fathom. Well, I kind of spoiled it for myself. I remember that I really wanted to read the series from Goodreads, and so I went ahead and I picked it up. And so about maybe 30% of the way through, I went to Goodreads and I reread the synopsis, and then it talked about him and creatures and putting them together. So I really kind of ruined that for myself, and I was really upset. But it didn't take away from the rest of the story. And that leads us to Edward, one of the Doctor's creations. I kind of knew that something was different about Edward, just the fact that he was so silent. I felt that there wasn't a lot of Juliet-Edward interactions, so I knew maybe something had to be a little off or weird. And then I mean, it wasn't ever confirmed until the very end, but I had a feeling after Alice's death, when he came back and there's rips and bruises, I kind of had a feeling that he was a monster, but I didn't know the extent of who Edward really was, which then leads me to his name and cover-up. I just thought that was really genius of the author to put in stuff like that, like Edward III, and he was using these stories as a cover-up, and I thought that was really interesting, and I really liked that. One of my favorite characters of the book that I really wish we would have gotten more of was Jaguar. I thought he was so cool and like super special, and he wasn't like Balthazar, and I love Balthazar as well, but he was very different, and I kind of really liked his character, so I really wish we would have gotten a little bit more of it, and I just could picture it perfectly. The imagery in all of these creations that Dr. Moreau created were just gruesome, and yet at the same time, like, so vividly descriptive that the description itself was just beautiful. And then let's get to Balthazar. He's just like a little puppy dog, and it was one of those things at the end where it was Juliet was thinking that Balthazar wouldn't be able to go with Montgomery and her to go back. I was just like, if they leave Balthazar behind, I'm gonna be really upset. So I'll get to the ending later because that was still upsetting, but Balthazar is just one of those characters that you just can't help but like, because he's just so genuine and kind of like a child. He just has those qualities where you just want to like bring him close and be like, I'm going to take you home now, okay? Okay. Now for Montgomery, I really liked him, and there was a little bit of a triangle trying to go on between Juliet, Montgomery, and Edward, and I was totally siding with Montgomery. I mean, there were some things that really threw me off and kind of are still throwing me off now, and it's hard for me to get past them, like when we find out that Montgomery has been helping Dr. Moreau and that Alice was actually his creation. It really took me aback and really shocked me. I had a feeling that, you know, he was helping out the doctor or like doing other things, but the fact that he was actually in the laboratory restraining a creature, and then he also creates Alice, adds such a new dimension to Montgomery that I'm not sure if I like it. Like, I was such a fan until I realized that, and now there's that sliver of doubt in my head. However, the reason why I like Montgomery is the fact that he accepts Juliet's, you know, mad side. And I think somewhere in the book it said that Edward would understand her mad side. He gets her because he is, you know, part animal. But what I think Juliet is failing to realize in the book is that Montgomery has known her for forever. He has dealt with the doctors. I'm sure he has some bit of a mad in himself as well. I mean, especially since he created Alice. Now, Juliet being part of her father's experiments took me by surprise, but it didn't at the same time. I knew that he couldn't have gotten her scot-free. So I knew that somehow or another she was a part of his experiments, but I didn't realize to the extent that she was, and that she has a deer spine, and so that's also part of her madness and why she needs to take that. I thought that maybe she had aided him in some way, and coincidentally, but I didn't think that she would actually be his first experiment and the catalyst of everything that he does. The ending was so heartbreaking when Balthazar and Montgomery just were kind of like letting her go in the ship. I was just like, no, this can't be the ending. And so I was really excited to remember that there was a sequel and that they will be reunited, because or else I would have been devastated. So that is all for today. I cannot wait for the sequel to come out. Only like one more week, and then I'll probably have up a book discussion for that too. So I'll see you guys later. Don't forget to subscribe, and until next time, bye.